Welcome to our session on best practices for designing web mapping applications. I'm Beth Romero. I'm a product engineer on the ArcGIS Online team, and I focus primarily on configurable and instant apps. And I'm joined here today with Sarah.
And hi, I'm Sarah McDonald. I am a holistic testing product engineer who focuses on ArcGIS Online and configurable apps.
Today we're going to talk about building interactive web applications. We're going to focus on how to build engaging apps that are easy to use and build. The focus of this session will be on configurable apps, with most of the attention on the next generation of those, which are referred to as instant apps. These apps are easy to build and do not require any code. They are available with the Essential Apps bundle, which comes as part of the core user types. These apps are hosted in the ArcGIS Online infrastructure, which makes them scalable and ready for any audience. So let's dig into what actually are instant apps. They're the next generation of web applications available in ArcGIS Online. They are focused single-purpose applications. Instant apps are optimized for desktop and mobile. They were designed mobile first to ensure a smooth experience across a variety of devices. Accessibility has been a top focus of the team, and we are continuing to strive to make our apps accessible to all users. There are also new app components, such as the ability to set boundaries in the viewable extent through the navigation boundary component. You can easily move tools and app components using the position manager. And last year, the ability to add Google Analytics to individual apps was included. When publishing maps through the new map viewer, you will see a new collection of instant apps. These are recognized by the new graphic thumbnail showing the app's look and feel. There's also a new configuration experience, and it's a consistent experience across all the apps, meaning you'll see a very similar look and feel each time you open an app to configure it. The new configuration provides two options to configure apps: Express and Full Setup. Express Setup is 4 steps and shows the most essential settings in the application. This is a great way to get your app up and running quickly. Depending on the purpose of the app, each app may have different settings available in the Express mode. If you're interested in seeing all the options, you can easily switch to the Full Setup. When you're in the Full Setup mode, you will have the ability to search for settings to find any options you're interested in. As you're configuring your app, it's updated immediately in the preview window, and all changes are auto-saved to the draft mode. When it's looking the way you want, you can publish the app. Something that comes standard in all applications is the ability to set the app's theme to dark or light mode. Creating a web app is a great way to present map information in a meaningful way. Apps allow you to showcase specific map capabilities as well as add additional functionality. Once you've got your map looking the way you want, you can publish it to an instant app. The end product will be a configured application that's easily shareable across the ArcGIS Online org or outside of it. Apps really complete the user experience. So creating a web app is just a great way to present map information in a meaningful way. Apps allow you to showcase specific map capabilities as well as add additional functionality. Once you've got your map looking the way you want, it's really easy to pick an app template, select a few options, hit publish, and then the end result is a configured application. Apps can be derived from a variety of geospatial content. There are a number of web map-based applications, ranging from apps that can highlight informative cartography to those which search for nearby locations. 3D apps can showcase scenes as well as add additional functionality to support a variety of workflows. And finally, group content can be published and shared in the group-based apps. These apps come with capabilities like the ability to filter or sort, and also open and view content in the application. I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to talk a bit about the importance of creating meaningful maps and scenes to put into your apps.
Before we get started with building apps, let's look at configuring maps. Apps can fulfill many needs when web maps are configured with a clear narrative. In these next few slides, we will look at notable tools and settings offered within the map viewer that can strengthen the story of a map and the data within the map. What do we want to convey to users upon a first glance of a map? What do we see? Styles, clustering, base maps and reference layers, labels? Is someone looking at this map on a desktop or on a mobile device? Assessing what is the most important part of a map to be visualized can help with what users will take away first. We can create strong data visualization means by using smart mapping styles in Map Viewer. We can also utilize settings like labels or base maps and reference layers to provide context to what and where the map is. Creating a strong vision for the first look at a map can set the groundwork for a user's investigation of the map further. This could mean that someone wants to explore why there are so many points densely located around a certain area on the map and start exploring those features pop-ups. Upon looking at a map for the first time, styles can do a great amount to give context to what story a map is telling. Starting with stylizing data. Using Map Viewer, there are many combinations of how data in a layer can be displayed. This includes styling based on location or using a single symbol to define a location. An example of this might be using a restroom icon to represent the restrooms located in National Park. We can also choose to use styling based on categories or attributes in a layer. An example of this being displaying different metro train lines in a city using certain colors like a blue line or a green line. Size can also be introduced into using types of categories to show values. For example, this could be taking those different metro lines being displayed with different colors based on the line and increasing the thickness of the line in correlation with how many train riders a line might see per year. Then we can look at just using size to display the counts or total amounts of a feature. For example, displaying the size of one single point feature in correlation to the size of the population in a city. We can then move to looking at displaying layers alongside other layers in a map. Layer blending is a more recent feature in Map Viewer that can take two or more layers and blend the pixels of those layers. In Map Viewer, there are many different types of blending that can be accomplished. One example of layer blending in Map Viewer could be taking a hillshade elevation layer and blending that with a base map. This would create a blended effect so that the two features would be displayed together and the end user wouldn't just see the topmost layer. Let's go ahead and take a moment and see what this would actually look like. Okay, so here we are in Map Viewer. I've gone ahead and added in my Glacier National Park layers with some trails. I want to add that elevation layer that we were talking about so that I can see what kind of trails and elevation gains there might be. So I've gone ahead and I've already added this hillshade layer, but as I mentioned, we are only seeing this topmost layer. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is open up the layer properties for this base map. And over here on the right side, here is where I'm going to do my layer blending. I've already decided which type of layer blending I want to use, so I'm going to go ahead and find that. And from here, now we can see that I can see the elevation layer from that hillshade layer, and it's being blended with my community base map. And now I can see what elevation might be like on some of these trails. All right, now let's go ahead and get back to those slides. All right, and now we get to visible ranges. Using visibility ranges to define scales at which layers will display in the map. This setting can be useful to prevent layers from drawing if the map is an extent where those layers are not necessary. And finally, we'll get to clustering. If your map has a hefty number of features, using clustering can give an impression of the number of features that are in an area without having to draw the individual features. These types of configurations can provide maps with a first expression of, what is this map's purpose? The next items we should look at while preparing a map for an app would be to look at its attributes and configuring map properties to highlight feature layer attributes. One way we can showcase attributes would be to configure pop-ups. Pop-ups can display feature layer attributes as a list, a custom attribute display using a rich text editor, displaying attributes using a chart, or displaying attachments in a pop-up from a feature layer. There are many different tools that can be used to configure attributes to display in a pop-up. In some cases, a more concise pop-up can be best when the user knows they might aim for using hover pop-ups in a web app. Likewise, sometimes providing more information in a pop-up can be useful for features. With pop-ups, we can also choose to create arcade expressions to create and deliver new information from existing fields in a layer. Another way we can work with attributes in a feature layer is by refining a feature layer to only display features based on an expression. We can do this by using filtering in the map. A filter can be used to present a specific narrative on a map by only showing certain features from that layer. Finally, we can even look to displaying attributes directly onto a map using labels. Labels can help to provide attribute information upon the first glance of the map. Labels include short pieces of text based on attribute information from a feature layer. Now that we have taken a look at feature layer configuration settings, we can move on to map settings for exploring data. To further assist with navigating throughout a web map, we can choose to include bookmarks. These locations are defined by a map author. By creating these shortcuts, users of the map can quickly navigate through areas of importance. When a bookmark location is selected on the map, it will pan and zoom to that defined area. If a layer in a map includes time data, a map can be configured to display data in a map using time intervals. This allows for the map to highlight features that occur at a specific time. Time can be configured to display features in time intervals or by progressively displaying all the features over time. In ArcGIS Online, there is a large variety of base maps that we can choose from. Base maps can help to provide a reference to the location and data that is being highlighted in a web map. We saw the power of base maps a few slides back when we looked at the layer blending demo. These types of settings configured in web apps can be carried over and be used in web apps. We will look at utilizing these map configurations in the demos later in this presentation. Finally, we will look at how the item details page of a map can provide users with a variety of information. Information from this page can come from the title of an item, summary, description, terms of use, and visualization of an item. These types of information can provide users with the answer to the question of, what is this? The information on an item page can be applied to other items like apps and layers along with maps. The title for an item is self-explanatory, but it will be the first thing that someone will see when examining an item, so it should represent what the item contains. The thumbnail image is another item in the item page that will draw attention from users. The thumbnail can be adjusted to be a custom image from the data owner or can be configured to show part of a map. The summary and descriptions for an item are crucial means to provide information about that item. The summary can be used to deliver a short overview for the item and will be displayed on an item card in the search results. The description can provide a more in-depth dive explanation on that item. The description does not have a character limit like the summary does, and it is designed for more information. The item page is also an area where the terms of use or crediting can be presented. This can be especially useful if the item is publicly accessible. The terms of use can be a place to include any use constraints on any map layers. Along with the terms of use, the credits section can be used to provide a source of the data provider, like different agencies or individuals. Another descriptor on the item page that can be utilized is categories. Categories can be defined in individual groups or in an organization. These categories can be assigned to items, and items can be assigned to fall under multiple categories. An example of a category might be adding a trending category for snow forecast maps during winter months, or adding a boundaries category to county layers in a state. Information on an item page can help users to learn more about an item. In a later demo, we are going to look at how the Category Gallery web app can utilize some of the information found on an item page. Now that we have covered preparing a web map with a purpose, we are going to look at configuring web apps. One of the apps that we are going to look at is the Attachment Viewer Configurable app. Attachment Viewer showcases attachments like images, videos, and PDFs alongside a map of locations. The map in this application includes basic navigation tools and other settings used to document attributes and features from the map. In this demo, we will see some of these options that we can use to highlight attachments and the associated locations. All right, let's go ahead and open the app. For the purpose of this demo, we are going to use the Express setup to configure this application. After we configure tools for the application, we will walk through setting up the app for using web analytics so that we can track views of this application. In this app, I have a web map that includes 2 layers, both which have attachments. I already know in this application what I want to include. I want to include a legend so that users accessing this app can identify symbols for each layer in the map. I want to use dark theme so that the tools and layouts in this app all use that dark style. And I want to change the app layout so that it's a map-focused layout. I like the look of a gallery of attachments, while the map of the locations from these layers takes up the main stage. Okay, let's go ahead and get started.
All right, so as I mentioned, we're going to be using Express Setup to configure this application today. So let's go ahead and start with step 1. Since we already have the map in here, we don't really need to worry about this step too much. But just since we're here, I will mention that if we did want to change maps or if we create the application without a map already in it, this is where we could go to select the map or change the map. In here, we can also use the Open in Map Viewer and Open in Map Viewer Beta links so that we can go back into the web map and make any edits that we might have forgotten to make while we were configuring the map originally. All right, let's go to the next step. Okay, so the About section. So here I am going to go ahead and change the title, and we will just use NASA locations. I already have this introduction panel up, and I'm just going to go ahead and keep it the way it is. The default text is fine for this example. And as I mentioned earlier, I want to use the legend, so let's go ahead and just enable that. One of the great things about this configuration panel is that we do see those auto updates. So when I went ahead and enabled the legend tool, now we can already see that it's just showing up here in the map already. And there we have my 2 layers. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue on to step 3. Now, we don't need to adjust any settings in this step. We already have search enabled, and I'm already just going to use the ArcGIS World Geocoding service, and that's just fine. I'm not going to add or remove any other
geocoding services. So we can go ahead and go to the next step. All right, so theme and layout. So I did say that I wanted to use dark theme, and I also wanted to use the map focused layout. So let's go ahead and take a look at these settings. So the first one we have here is select a theme. So right now it's using the light theme. So let's go ahead and change that to dark theme. All right, and now we can see that we are utilizing that dark theme here, as are all of our tools here. Okay, so then we'll go ahead and change the layout. So let's go ahead and change that. There we go. So as I mentioned, now we have this gallery view of our attachments. So right now the NASA splashdown locations is using the gallery, and we can go ahead and change that at any time. And now we can see the other layer, and it's using the gallery now too. The other thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to turn off shared theme. For the purpose of this application, we don't really need to use shared theme since it's currently configured for a different purpose. So we'll go ahead and turn that off. And now we'll just keep that same blue. Okay, so now that we've gone through the Express setup, we're going to go ahead and configure the Google Analytics for this application. So I'm going to go over here to this action bar. I'm going to go ahead and expand that just so we can see what these options are. So let's go ahead and click on the Web Analytics. Okay, so here, the first thing we're going to need is my Google Analytics ID. So I already have the tracking ID available. So let's go ahead and enable that. And I'll go ahead and just paste it in here. Notice once I entered in the tracking ID, I was able to activate this next button, and that's where I can go ahead and add a consent message, which is what I'm going to go ahead and do next. Let's go ahead and enter in that consent message now. So we don't have to use a consent message, but for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to. So let's go ahead and enable that. And from here, now we get this rich text editor that we can enter in our consent message. And there we go. So now I have my message here. Let's go ahead and submit that. Great. Okay, so I've got all of my changes now. I'm going to go ahead and publish this application. Great. So let's go ahead and launch the app so we can see the live version now. All right, so now we're in the live version of the app. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the settings that we configured and how they're being used in the application. So let's go ahead and hit OK on that. As we set up our Google Analytics consent message, here we have it appearing when the app first loaded. We'll go ahead and just opt in there. Okay, so we have our legend tool here in the map, so we can see the different styles that we had configured in the web map. By using the legend, we can help users to identify certain locations and what they might mean. Let's go ahead and change layers real quick. Let's check out these NASA locations. When I configured this web map, I went ahead and configured the pop-ups to display a certain way. So let's go ahead and investigate that a little bit. So instead of using the standard pop-up table, I went ahead and just used a description that was already part of the attributes. I went ahead and configured the pop-up to only just show this description. Okay, great. So now that we've seen Attachment Viewer, let's go ahead and move on to the next demo. Our next app that we are going to be covering is the 3D Viewer app. The 3D Viewer app presents a web scene with a variety of 3D exploration and measurement tools. This application also includes a basic set of navigation tools like zoom tools or bookmarks. In this demo, we are going to explore the measurement tools for a web scene, along with informational tools we can use in the app to introduce users to the app. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the 3D viewer. In this scene, we have a partial set of buildings in downtown Vancouver. I already know the set of tools and settings that I would like enabled in this app. Here are the things we want to do. We want to add an introduction panel with text. The reason for this is so that people accessing the app for the first time will see what the app is about and what is included in it. The next thing I want to do is I'll want to configure the preset slides tool. In the web scene, I configured areas of interest or bookmarked locations. So I want to enable a tool that will allow my app users to explore these locations. In 3D apps, these are called preset slides instead of bookmarks. The next thing I'll want to do is configure my measurement tools. The measurement tools that I'm going to include are the standard measure tools, which include tools that measure distance and area, the slice tool, which will exclude or cut out parts of a layer to adjust the view of a scene, and the line of sight tool, which will use that tool to see if one or multiple targets are visible from an observer point. The next tool that I'll include will be the screenshot tool. I want to enable this tool so that users of this application can capture screenshots of the scene or other features available in the app. And then the last thing I'll do is I will enable dark theme. I want to do this again just so I can show how dark theme is used with some of the other tools that we have in this application. Okay, let's go ahead and start configuring this app. Okay, so the first thing that we'll do is let's go ahead and just switch to full setup. Right now we're in Express setup, but we're going to need full setup to configure all the tools that we mentioned. So we'll go ahead and switch. All right, so now that we are in full setup, we can go ahead and get started. Since we already have our scene chosen, we can go ahead and enter the About section. So now that we're here, we're going to go ahead and choose the App Detail section, which is where the intro panel will be located. So let's go ahead and let's enable the introduction panel. And I already have a set of text that we're going to use, so let's go ahead and copy that in. For the intro panel content, we have a rich text editor to configure the text in. So let's go ahead and get that text. And we'll hit OK. And let's change the introduction panel button text to be, let's go. All right, there we go. And now we'll hit that. And as you can see, the introduction panel button is now here. If we click on that. And once we've configured all of these options for the intro panel, now we have our intro panel showing up here. So there's nothing else that we'll need to configure in here. So let's go ahead and enter into the interactivity section. So as I mentioned, we want to enable the preset slides tool and the measurement tools. I already know that these are located in our Explore Navigate section. So here we have the display preset slides. So let's go ahead and enable that. And then we can enable our measurement tools and our slice tools. All right, let's go ahead and clear this intro panel just so we can see those tools. All right, so here's our slides tool, our measurement tool, and our slice tool. Let's go ahead and go back. And now, like I said, I want to enable the line of sight tool. So let's go ahead and find that in the modify section. And we'll enable that tool. Now, one of the things about this configuration panel and all configuration panels for instant apps is they have the ability to search for settings. As I mentioned, I want to enable the screenshot tool. Let's say I'm a new user and I'm not exactly sure where that might be. So let's go ahead and search for that. Let's open up the search here in the top left-hand corner and we'll type in screenshot. Here we have it showing up, so we'll go ahead and click on that. And as we can see, it took us directly to the location of the screenshot tool. So let's go ahead and enable that now. And there we go. Now we have that as well. All right. The last thing that we wanted to do was to enable dark theme. So let's go ahead and go to the theme and layout section, and we can go ahead and enable that. We'll go to the theme section, and here we can enable dark theme. As you can see, now everything, all of the tools that we had enabled are now using that dark theme. Now, since I have enabled all of these tools, they have gone to a default location. It's not necessarily where I want these tools to be located for this application, so let's go ahead and utilize the position manager. All right, so I want all of my measurement tools in the bottom right corner. So let's go ahead and move all those. I'm just going to go ahead and drag and drop these right there. Great. I want my introduction panel to display above my slide, so I'm going to go ahead and just move that above that. And I want my screenshot tool to be in the bottom left-hand corner. So let's go ahead and move that down. There we go. Now everything is in the correct location. Let's go ahead and publish this app. There. Now let's go ahead and launch the application. Great, so here's our launched app. As we can see, the intro panel showing up first. Let's go ahead and enter into the app. And just as an example, I'm going to go ahead and show the use of the preset slides, one of the measurement tools, and the screenshot tool. So let's go ahead and open up the preset slides, and let's go to the stadium slide. As we see, the map quickly navigates to that location. So let's go ahead and let's use the line of sight tool to see points of view from a destination location. I know that there's a condo nearby here that we'll use. So let's open up that line of sight tool. And we'll start new analysis. Great. So now we see our cursor has changed to a drawing location. So we'll go ahead and click the top of this condo building. And from here, we'll draw some lines of sight to see where we can actually see from. All right, that's good. So now we have this line of sight measurement. Let's go ahead and take a screenshot of this. Here's our screenshot tool. We'll set the map area first that we want to capture. And from there, we can see that our measurement tools are actually included in the screenshot. So we can download this image, we'll give it a title, and we can send it off to somebody that might want to see this measurement. Great. So that's the 3D viewer. We'll go ahead now and we'll look at another demo. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Category Gallery Configurable app. The Category Gallery app presents content from a group along with including different ways to filter and sort through that content. The gallery can show items of all different item types, including but not limited to feature layers, web maps, web scenes, and web apps. Category Gallery presents these items using item cards that display an item's thumbnail, title, owner name, item summary, and the last modified date if desired. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this app. In this app, I have a group that includes items covering some national parks and protected lands throughout the United States. I have a few different item types in this group covered that I will be showcasing. In this group, I have also gone ahead and configured categories. We will use this app to highlight and utilize them as filters. Now let's get started configuring this app. Okay, so I've already gone ahead and moved us into full setup from Express, so we will go ahead and start configuring this application. Most of the settings that we're going to use today are going to be regarding configuring this gallery and the tools that we'll use to filter the content in the gallery. So I already have chosen my group, so we can go ahead and skip this group section and we'll move to the About section. I already have a title for this application, so we'll go ahead and copy it in. And there we have the auto update. All right, so let's go ahead and move into the interactivity section. The first thing that we'll go ahead and start with is going to be the gallery display. I'm going to go ahead and enable the Show Filter Pane on Load setting. That way, when users open this application for the first time, they already have the filters available. That's the only setting we'll need to configure in this section. So let's go ahead and go back, and we'll go to the content filtering section. As I mentioned, I already have categories configured, so I want to keep those as a filter option. I also want to keep item type as a filter option, but I'm going to go ahead and remove tags because I don't really need that as a filter option. I also want the categories to be open on default as a filter. So that way that people using this application for the first time can see my categories that I already have configured and can start using those right away. That is the only setting that I'll need for this section. So let's go back and let's go to the item card display. As I mentioned earlier in this presentation, the summary can be used on item cards. So as we can see here, we have these summaries already displaying on the item cards. We also have thumbnails configured as well. Some of them are from the map, and some of them are images that have been configured. I like the way that the item card is already being displayed, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep these settings the same. We'll go back, and now in this app, we can open up web maps directly and start investigating them. So let's go ahead and explore some of the tools that we can include in these web map tools. Let's go ahead and change the default base map to be dark gray. Let's turn on the legend tool, and we'll also include the home button. That way, when people open up a web map in this application, they have access to some of these tools. Those are going to be the only tools that we'll configure for this application. So let's go ahead and publish this app, and we can take a look at it. Okay, so let's go ahead and launch the app now. Okay, so here's our launched app. As we can see, we had our filter open on load, and we also have our categories open on load. So from here, we can navigate to only show US protected areas as a category and content that falls under that category, or we can show content that belongs to the national park category. Let's go ahead and clear that. All right, so as I mentioned, we configured tools that will show up when we open up a web map or feature layers from this gallery. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of those tools. I'm going to go ahead and view this Zion National Park features web map. As we can see, a web map opens directly in the application. We have our home button here, and we also have our legend button. And we can go in and we can navigate the map, and we can open up some features pop-ups and look at those. And then once we're done, we can just return to the gallery. So that is the category gallery application. Again, this app is great to use when wanting to showcase content from a group. The gallery will also highlight the item summary and thumbnails that are configured in the item page. I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic to Beth to cover a few other instant apps now.
Thanks, Sarah. So we're going to talk about a few more instant apps, and we're going to start off with the Media Map template. Media Map maximizes the potential of your map with navigation tools, time animation, and a swipe tool. It also has the ability to enable hover pop-ups. It's optimized for embedding, and it has a print tool and a screenshot tool. So let's take a look at a couple demos with Media Map. So here I have a map of Ireland. This map is showing historical plaques. I have configured the pop-up to my liking. Let's take a look at it. And I think the map is looking pretty good. I want to create a web application that lets users of my application search for specific historical plaques and also easily browse through the different plaques. So I'm going to go ahead and start by creating a web application. As a way to narrow down instant apps, I'm just going to type in instant. And in here, I'm going to select Media Map. Let's give it a meaningful name. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start configuring my application. I already have a map selected, so I'm going to hit Next. And in this step, I have the ability to include information about my map. So I'm going to go ahead and enable the legend. Oops, and this is going to allow users of this application to open the legend and see what these different plaque types mean. In the interactivity section, I'm going to enable search. And in this section, I want to add the ability to search a specific feature. So I want to be able to search the plaques for the name of the person it's dedicated to. So in this case, I'd want to be able to find Rory Gallagher. Let's go ahead and set that up. I'm going to add it from the map, and I'm going to add the layer, historical plaques. And in here, I can include custom placeholder text. I'm going to tell users to enter a name. The field I want will be the lead subject name. Let's go ahead and add that. I'll have the display field match the same. And I'm going to go ahead and hit done. So right now I have two search sources. If I open this up, you'll see that I have a drop down. Best practice is really just to limit it to one unless there's a good reason. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the other search source. And now I can come in here, I can enter the name, and as I'm typing, I will get suggestions. Oops, looks like I have maybe the wrong field in here. I have lead subject roles, so let's change that to name. Go ahead, hit done. All right, now let's give it a try. And as I type, I can see that now the name is being returned and it opens up the pop-up when I search. Another option within Media Map is to enable hover pop-up. So let's go back to the About section where I saw hover pop-up. And for this one, I'm going to put it in a fixed location and we'll add it to the bottom left. So now when I hover over a pop-up, it's going to open it in the bottom left-hand corner. And if the image does not have, or if the feature does not have an image, it just will not show that, but will show the other information. So hover pop-up can be great for certain pop-up content, something that's short and can kind of fit in this window. All right, now I have the app looking the way I'd like. I'm going to go ahead and publish this. And we'll launch it. So here is my completed application that is going to let my users search for a specific plaque dedicated to a person. It's also going to allow me to hover over any content and see that displayed in the bottom left-hand corner. All right, let's move on to a different example of Media Map. And in here, this is a map that is showing snow forecast data in the United States. So this data is showing it from the date of recording, which is in February, and it looks like we're heading up to a very snowy weekend. So for the sake of time, I've already started the configuration experience, and we're starting on step 1. So I want to take advantage of the time enablement from the snow forecast layer. So I'm going to switch to the full setup since we just went through Express and I noticed time was not in there. I'm going to click on interactivity, and here I see I have the time option. The first thing I'm going to do is just enable time. And I'd like it to be expanded at the start so people realize this is a time-based app. And let's go ahead and just play it through and see how we can see what the weekend's going to hold for us in terms of snow. And this is set up for an 8-hour increment. And right now you can see it's just showing the day, so that's a little confusing. So I'm going to go ahead and enable include time in the display. So now I can see that it's just for a portion of a specific day. Another thing I would like to do to this app is include the legend. Not everyone maybe knows what gray versus purple means. So let's go back to About and click under App Details. Oops, click under Location Details, and I'm going to enable the legend. I can also select that I want the legend to be open at the start if that's something I feel is important. It cuts off a little bit of what's happening in my map, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Now let's play the rest of this time loop. Here we go. And I can see it, we can see it one more time. All right, this is looking the way I would like it to look, so I'm going to go ahead and publish this application. For this app, I'd really like to embed it in an existing web page. When I hit publish and I get to the share page, I can adjust the width and height of what I would like, what I have for the iframe I'd like to embed it in. And you'll see as I changed it from 450 to 400, it's going to update the height to 400. I can copy this, and now I have that, and I can go ahead and embed that into my web page. So just to recap, Media Map has a lot of great features, and we didn't even have time to go through all of them. So I really encourage you to check out Media Map and kind of explore all it has to offer. So let's move on to another configurable app. Next, we're going to talk about the Nearby application. Nearby guides your app viewers to points of interest in your map based on a searched address or a location they click on. This is a really great application to look up areas of interest. We've seen a lot of great examples recently showing vaccine locations. It's great for store locations. You can build an app where you can find specific healthcare facilities, and this also comes with the ability to enable directions. So once you find the feature you're looking for, you can get directions to it. For this example, I'd like to create a Nearby application to look up the closest testing site within a search distance. So here I have a map showing all the testing locations in the Denver metro area. I'm going to go ahead and click on a pop-up. And I can see that this pop-up has been configured so that the top of the pop-up style matches the point style. It also contains a lot of valuable information, access to the website, if I need a specific appointment, or if there's other hours that it's open, and then I can see the last time that it's been updated. This pop-up was configured using a series of arcade expressions. One nice thing about configurable apps is the pop-up that you see in your map is also the pop-up that you're going to see in the application. So that includes arcade expressions. So let's go ahead and jump into the configuration panel. So here I have my Nearby application in the configuration mode. I've already selected a map, so I'm going to jump into step 2. Here I can change the app title. I also can create a custom introduction panel, and that's shown right here in this area. This is a really great way to customize the welcome or introduction panel for any additional information you need to share with your app users on how to interact with this application. Next, I get to interactivity, and this is where I'm going to select any layers I want to include in the results. If you have a map with multiple layers and you only would like a couple layers returned or one, you can select just that one. Another really nice feature of Nearby that I mentioned was you can enable it to the results to add directions. So I'm going to go ahead and enable directions. And this brings us to the search configuration. Right now, the only search source is the ArcGIS World Geocoding Service, and that is perfect for the use of this app. Let's scroll down and take a look at the different search distance, options we have. So I can change the minimum, the maximum, and the default search distance. For this example, since it's in the US, I'm going to go ahead and change this to miles. And I'm going to change the maximum to 10 miles and the default to be 5. All right. If no results are returned, I can customize the message I would like to put for no results. I'm going to go ahead and just leave this as it is and back up to the top and hit next. Here I can change the different themes between light and dark. I'm going to turn off shared theme. And I'm just going to leave the widgets where they are. I'm going to go ahead and hit publish. And because I'm going to enable directions, it's going to ask me to authorize that route service. So I'm going to go ahead and authorize it. And now my app is ready to use. But there's a few other things I can do within the Nearby app. First, let's just take a look at how this app works in the preview window. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on a location on the map. It's going to search 5 miles from that location. And you'll see it's going to return all the testing sites within that search distance. And this results panel looks exactly like the pop-up that was shown before in the map. So I can go ahead, and as I scroll down in the results, you'll see that the pop-up title is highlighted in the map. So I can see where these are. If I'd like to go to this one, it looks like these are the hours I'm looking for. I can go ahead and just click directions. Let's see how long it's going to take me to get there. Only 6 minutes, seems very doable. All right, so let's go ahead and clear our search location, and this kind of takes us back to the default of the application. Let's switch to full setup and explore a few other options available within the Nearby application. I really want to keep this search focused on the Denver metro area. This app will be used exclusively for residents of this area. One way I can do that is using the navigation boundary. So I'm going to go to Explore Navigate, and in here I can enable navigation boundary. Let's configure this option. So this is going to allow me to really define the extent of this application, so I can just draw a square around where I want my app users, kind of the limit I'd like them to have. So I'm going to go ahead and get all the way up to Loveland and down to Castle Rock, and we'll just keep it within this specific distance for now. I can also choose to limit the scale as well. So if I'd like to, I can come in and move this so that it's at the country's level. Let's go ahead and confirm that. One other thing I just want to point out that we're not going to use, but you can enable the ability to prevent a rotation, or you can predefine a map rotation. Let's confirm what we have. All right, so now in my map, as I scroll out, I had it at country, so you'll see I eventually am limited to this on my scrolling. And now if I want to pan, so we had it right about up to Loveland, Fort Collins, and I can come down as I zoom in. You're going to see that I cannot pan beyond a certain boundary. So this is helpful to prevent people from maybe getting lost in an application, really keep their focus on the specific location that your app is trying to highlight. Now that I have the navigation boundary set up, let's take a look at a few other options. In full setup, you can see that distance slider has its own subsection. So let's go ahead and open that up. Here, I can change the settings that we set earlier, but one other feature that's in full setup is you can change the min and the max search distance. So if I enable this, I would be able, as a user of the application, to come in and change this number to a very specific search distance I would like. Let's say that I perform a search just outside of Boulder, and when I'm doing the search, nothing is being returned. Let's see if I get all the way up to 10 miles. I can see a few are in here, but I want to see a few more options. So I can come in and I can change this up to 15. Now I have the ability to slide and include a few additional sites. So within the full setup, you do have options to kind of more fine-tune configure this application. But this has got us looking where we'd like, so now I am ready to publish. and launch my application. So just to recap, the nearby application is a great lookup application. You have lots of different options to kind of customize it the way that you would like and to fit the purpose of your application. All right, let's take a look at one last instant app. We are going to transition over to the interactive legend. And in this application, you will see I have a map showing different global power plants, and they're symbolized by their fuel type. The interactive legend lets you filter the map using the legend. So through here, I could select hydro, solar, and wind. And now I can just see those. If I wanted to show them all again, I can continue to easily filter and show different types of global power plants. So let's take a look at how to actually build an application like this. Here's my map. It's been symbolized the way I'd like. I have my pop-up configured. Let's just take a look at that to check. Yep, this looks exactly like how I would like it to look. So this map is ready to create a configurable or instant app from. So here's the item. I'm going to go ahead and just create web app, select configurable app or instant app. And now I'm going to look for interactive legend. Here it is. All right, let's get started creating our app. All right, and we're back to the very familiar configuration panel. And I'm just going to bypass Express today, and I'm going to switch right into full setup. I really want to dig into all the options that this interactive legend component has. So let's go to interactivity, and I'm going to open the legend. So I have a couple different options that I can add on to this legend. This is how it is by default. It's showing me the different classifications within this feature layer, the global power plants. But I want to know, as I'm filtering, how many features are being shown on the map of that specific type. I can also add a zoom to button, but because this data is showing power plants across the entire world, it's not really going to benefit me that much to have the zoom to option. So I'm going to go ahead and disable that. I can also have the option to filter my data. I can, instead of just hiding it, I can mute it. So let's take a look at how that will look. This time I'm going to filter by gas and oil. And I can still see the locations of the other power plants. They've just been muted, so they're not being highlighted. So the ones I've selected are very visible. And you'll see that it also includes the total feature count. I have the ability to kind of fine tune the mute opacity and grayscale if I'd like to play around with that. Another component that instant apps have across all of them is the screenshot tool. So let's turn that on and take a look at it. This screenshot tool comes with the ability to include a legend. I can enable it by default. I can also include pop-up information of a specific feature. So we'll turn that on. Now here's my screenshot tool. It's letting me know I have not selected a feature for the pop-up. Let's take a look at what this power plant is specifically. And now I can set the area around this power plant. And it's going to create a screenshot that includes the pop-up information and the legend. So here I have the map, I have the pop-up which is highlighted, its information, and I have the full legend included in this. All right, so I'm going to return to the map. The interactive legend does have some data requirements. The nice thing about these instant apps is if you do add data to the map, the nice thing about instant apps is if you do add a map that doesn't have a supported drawing style, the configuration panel will give you a warning which lets you know this map does not meet the requirements of the application. So today we've taken a nice tour of available instant apps. We hope you enjoyed this session and that you take the time to check out some instant apps.